Hello, I'm very excited to be doing our second podcast. Today we have Jodie Seipp, which rhymes with type, and I wish
Well done.
I wish I was the one to come up with that, but Jodie was. Jodie is from O'Fallon High School in O'Fallon, Illinois. Jodie, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're delighted. So now you're a bit unique in that your primary role isn't an activities director. It is a teacher. It's more than that, actually, because you run a department, but then also you run prom. Is that right?
Absolutely. So at my school, the way that it's structured, I'm an English department chair. So in the morning, I teach 3 classes, and then in the afternoon, I do more administrative duties, hiring, interviewing, onboarding, evaluating, all of that. And then in my spare time, I run the prom. So that's kind of my before and after school activity.
And how did you even get into the prom side of things? Like, when did that happen, and how did you even get into that?
That's a great question. So I am a planner. Like, I love to plan anything. And so when I started here at the high school as a teacher, I was a cheerleading coach for a little bit. I was a class sponsor for a little bit. And then the prom position opened up. And I think I literally ran to the principal's office saying I want this job. And I love the idea of planning an event, making something beautiful, creating the opportunity for kids to get together with their friends and have those memories. So I've been doing it for, I think, 20 plus years now.
That might be one of the longest I've ever heard from talking to a subset of our different customers. Before we jump into prom, will you step back? Tell us about O'Fallon as a high school. How large is it? Where are you located? Give us an idea of the type of community that you're in.
Yeah, so it's a suburban community. We are about 15 or 20 minutes from St. Louis, Missouri, but we're on the Illinois side. Our school has 2,500 students, a really diverse population. We have 2 different campuses, and so there's a lot of moving pieces that happen for anything we're doing at our school, especially for the prom.
And how did you get into prom in the first place? Why did you sign up to do it 20 some years ago?
I thought it would be fun.
And is it not now?
I was 23 years old when I thought that, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it's so fun. I love the prom. I can tell you that. I wholeheartedly love doing the prom. I'm not doing it for the money. I don't think anyone who sponsors a club or coaches, they're not doing it for the money. It pays nearly nothing. But I like to work with the kids, and I like to create an amazing night for them.
And is that just because the impact that you find that it has on them is, I don't know if profound is the right word, but they just have so much fun in it? Because when you talk to anyone who is now an adult, not to say that 18-year-olds aren't, but I'm 38. And if you were to ask a 38-year-old, oh, do you remember high school? Usually they say some large event like prom or homecoming. Is that what you mean by the impact that it has on them?
Absolutely. I think when we think back to our own high school experiences, it's exactly what you're saying. We're not remembering a Tuesday math lesson. We're remembering some sort of a special event. And I think prom is that event for most kids. It's probably prom, homecoming, which are both dances, or maybe graduation. But honestly, I think it's the dances that most people remember the most.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's get into prom for a second. And if you can, just try to make this as practical as possible for someone watching who's running them. What makes for a great, whether it's prom or homecoming, a large event? Because if we set context, how many students are coming? And can you just share some of the difficulties in running prom? Because for folks who haven't run them or these large dances before, when we started trying to help solve this problem, it's crazy. There could be over 1,000 students. They have multiple people trying to pay. Then you have to physically check them in, and then sometimes you have to bus them. So can you kind of give an overview for folks watching or listening to this of what makes for a great prom, and what are some practical examples of things that are really hard to deal with during prom?
Yeah, if it's okay, I might start with what's hard or complex and then jump into the other. So I have 2 master's degrees. I'm working on my doctorate, and I've never once taken a class on the prom, right? There's no workshops on how to run a prom. There's no national organization on that. And so even as a cheerleading coach, I could have gone to workshops or something, but as a prom sponsor, I can't do that. As an English teacher, I can. As a prom sponsor, I'm on my own to figure it out. And there's not really a support network to help people figure out how to run a prom. And for our school, we have 1,000 kids who attend our event. So that is a lot of people to try to, organize something that is beautiful, that is well done, that is safe. That's our number one priority for these kids, and do that year after year and be able to sustain that and build upon it and make it better every single year. And so I think one of the biggest complexities is just not really having a huge support network. And so what my advice would be to people who are starting in this, or even if you've done it for years, is is to reach out and create your own network. So I will Google literally other schools in my area and figure out who their prom sponsors are. And I'm sending them emails and asking advice on, how do you guys handle coronation? How do you handle out-of-district guests? To try to create a network to understand how other schools are doing it, to learn from them. Additionally, we have a homecoming dance at our school that's run by a different sponsor who you know. And so talking to other people who might sponsor dances at your school is a good way to also learn from other people who do have some experience. So I think that would be a good first step in learning what questions do you even ask? Where do you even start?
Yeah, well, because it seems like the rabbit hole is so deep. If you haven't ran one before, there's logistics of if you need to bus kids there's security on premise.
Yes.
If you're going to have to check them in, if there's an outside guest, making sure that usually I'm assuming you have to make sure that they're between a certain age. They might have to sign documentation. And then there's hiring. Actually, I don't even know that answer. How do you hire teachers to help manage day-to-day at the prom? How does that work? You don't have to pick all of those, but can you just pick off a couple of those and then just explain what it's like at O'Fallon?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly everything you mentioned. It's one line item, but it could go 50 items deep on a list because there's so much that goes into each one. So, I'll go into ticketing because quite frankly, that is my number one stressor, right? And there's life, I'll be honest, there's life before Omella and there's life after Omella.
We did not ask you to say that. I just want to clarify that for folks.
But it's the truth, right? So
I've
done this forever, and I watched our homecoming sponsor use other online options, and it didn't work. And it got so stressful for her that honestly, she resigned from that position. And I was so skittish to try anything online because of seeing her go through that I just went old school. I'm going paper. I'm going checks and cash and 1,000 kids walking in my room paying for a ticket. And I realized it's 2024. It's time to jump onto something a little more progressive and make this easier for me. And I think that's what has happened. And so when I reached out to you guys and you were able to check all the boxes in terms of, student privacy, ease of use for me, ease of use for the kids, low cost. It was life-changing. I
should tell my mom that. She would be very happy to hear that.
It's true. And in my example, so I'm a national board certified teacher. And so every 5 years to retain that certification, you have to video a lesson and send it in. And it's an outside source reviews it to say if you're certified again. And I, in the past, would have been so busy on the first day of ticket sales that my lesson plans, while important, they would not have been something that I would have videoed that lesson for. But last year when I, start with Omelas, the ticket sales go online at 8, and at 8:01 I press play and I am recording literally the most important lesson of the last 5 years. And I have such confidence that I can focus on my students, that I can develop and roll out an amazing lesson for them because the ticketing is going on without me having to be ultimately, face-to-face with it like I was in the past. So the ticketing is by far the most stressful thing, and to find a system that works is key.
It's very helpful. I'm going to ask an abstract question. What have I not asked you that I should be? And it doesn't only have to pertain to prom. If you wanted to, that's totally fine. But you've taught for 20 years, you lead an English department. You're extremely well educated. You had 2 master's degrees, as you said. What have I not asked you that I should be asking you?
I think one thing that's kind of interesting, even over the scope of 20 years, is to just see that students are continually changing and evolving. And whether that's, how I'm dealing with them in a classroom setting or how I run a prom, you have to kind of meet students where they are. And there's a balancing act, especially in the world of prom, to uphold traditions, but then also keep things fresh and meet the needs of where our students are today. And that's something I'm super type A, that, and I like a plan. And so to kind of veer off that plan a little bit can be unnerving for me as a planner, but I think it's really important. So for example, we switched to a new venue for our prom last year, and the capacity of that was 1,000 kids, which was fine. Normally we have about that many, but that meant we couldn't have tables. And we had always, for 35 plus years at our school, had a reception style prom, like you would have at a wedding reception. And if I wanted to use this venue, which is in our city, and I want to support local businesses, I can't have tables. And I was as an adult, I thought, oh my gosh, where are these kids going to sit? They're not going to have their plated, chicken Parmesan dinner. What am I going to do? But really, the kids didn't want the tables. The kids don't want that formal, official sit down. They want a nice venue and they want it to look beautiful, but they don't want it to be a wedding reception. They want it to be a party and a dance. And so I think kind of being willing to evolve and meet kids where they are can be really helpful.
I love that. That made me think of two follow-up, very, very fast questions. How do you actually pay for this venue and when do you do it? So I'm assuming the venue, if you're going to have 1,000 people going, it's probably like 15 grand or I don't know, 30 grand. When do you actually pay them and where does that money even come from? Because maybe it comes from ticket sales. You get the money for the ticket sales, then you pay them. Or do you just front the money on school credit and then follow up?
So it's all based on ticket sales. So I try to book a venue. We have always had our prom, for 35 plus years, always had our prom offsite. And so I always try to have a venue booked at least 2 years in advance. As far out as they're going to let me book, I'm booking. So I'm already booked for prom 2026. And I'd really like to be booked for prom 2027, but they won't let me book out that far. Because if you get within 10 months, good luck finding a venue, likely, if you're in a more populated area. And so I'm paying a small deposit and I negotiate that with the vendor because they want a really sizable deposit. And I just explain, I'm a school, I don't have that money. I don't get that money until I start to sell tickets 6 weeks or 2 months before the event. So I give them a tiny little deposit, sign the contract, and then I'm paying them typically about a week before the event. I have a check for them to pay for the entire event.
They must love you though, or in general, people who are bringing proms to their school, because it's like a for sure thing. This prom is going to happen. You're going to collect the money for it. It's almost like.
I think so. So. I mean, our students are super well behaved, so that helps, know. But, and I don't know how profitable a prom is because.
For a venue?
Yes. I think I'm not sure how much they're making off of that, but I do think that they're happy to have repeated business. So that's great for everyone involved.
And for 1,000 student prom, roughly how much is a venue? Of course, there's different types of venue. I know, are we talking 10 grand? Are we talking 30, 50?
That's a great question. So every place I've ever had different venues, it's always per person. It's per head. So what I have done is tried to negotiate that price down. So instead of having a full plated meal, which might be $50 or $75 a head, I'm doing appetizers and light desserts at a much lower price. And so that would be something I would, if people are looking for a venue, being flexible with that. And just, even if a venue's website says these are our 5 packages and nothing works for you, ask them, tell them what you're wanting and see if they're willing to work with you.
Amazing. And if anyone wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way? Do you have a Twitter handle? Is there email, website?
Email is great, or website. Both would work. So.
Okay, cool. We will add your email to the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is Jodie from O'Fallon, and everyone, thanks for watching. I'm Brett from Omella. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you.